whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha,
where we share our love for all things spooky and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone.
welcome.
And big old sirens, because oh my God, guys, we are on season 4 of Talking Horror. How exciting!
Spooky.
Ghost sounds and brains, all the things. And to kick off season 4 of Talking Horror, we are discussing the 2022 slasher film X / for the X's / yes. This movie was written, directed, produced, and edited by a one Ty West, and it stars Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Martin Henderson, a one Brittany Snow, Miss Pitch Perfect, Owen Campbell, Stephen Uri, and oh my God, is that Kid Cudi?
Yes.
Nice. So, of course, in this episode, we're going to be talking about all things X and dipping into some of the prequel that's going to come out soon, Pearl, which I'm super excited to talk about that as well. So, if you have not watched X, watch it and then watch the Pearl trailer so you can be in the discussion with us. And Jamie, is there any trigger warnings?
Yeah, this movie, I mean, there's definitely a lot of insides on the outside. There's a lot of violence, pretty graphic gore. But this movie also revolves around pornography. So there is a lot of nudity and sex. So if that makes you uncomfortable, this might not be for you. Nudity from everyone of all ages.
Everyone.
Fair.
Okay, yes.
Yes, equal opportunity nudity.
For everyone. Male, female, doesn't matter. All the things.
Sex positive, positively sexy.
I absolutely love that. Sex positive.
I heard that from, I forget what the trailer was, but it made me laugh so hard. And I just thought about it again right now because I feel like this,
It applies.
It applies, sure.
This is it. Great. And if you're wondering what that random male noise is, this is our producer, Brian. And before we get into things, producer Brian, do you have some words for the people out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to season 4. I'm producer Brian. We are going to be covering some really awesome stuff this season. And this is also going to encompass Halloween. So all of your October fun stuff will be right here, including Halloween Ends, any super fun haunted houses that we go into. And there's just a ton of other movies that we're going to be covering and TV shows, the new Mike Flanagan show. We're super excited for all of that. And if you want to keep up with us, follow us on all social media. We are at Talk Horror Pod. That's at Talk Horror Pod. And you can find us on all social media. TikTok. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. And starting season 4, we are on YouTube. So you can find us on YouTube. That is right. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 are in the process of all being uploaded, and season 4 is going to start the video component. So you can see us, you can hear us talking, as well as see us reacting. So check us out on YouTube. That's Talking Horror Podcast on YouTube. I will link that in the description here, but that is Talking Horror Podcast on YouTube. We also broke them down into playlists, so you can find our favorite movies, you can find all of our Scream takes, you can find all slasher movies, all the thrillers, all the cult movies. I've broken it down so you can really sift through all of our I think we have over 50 or 60 episodes now, so you can check them all out there. So definitely check that out. And thank you for continuing to listen. Subscribe on YouTube. We would love to see you there.
Yes, we're fancy now, guys.
We are fancy.
Fancy.
On the World Wide Web.
Absolutely. So all the exciting things. So much to get into. But before we get into the actual movie, I heard that y'all watched some stuff, and I want to hear what's happening over there. So, Jamie or Brian, Go ahead.
Yeah. Jamie and I are finally, you did this during the pandemic, I believe, but
Uh-huh.
Jamie and I are finally watching through the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
I have only seen the original 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street and the early 90s New Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Those are
Hmm.
the only two I've seen. And I am super excited to watch them through. Jamie, which ones have you seen?
I've seen the first one. I've seen, I think, wait, it might be the same as you. The
Oh,
first
really?
one, New Nightmare.
Did
I,
you
I
see the?
think I think I've seen Freddy versus Jason. I think, but I really don't remember it at all.
Did you see the remake
Oh,
of
I
the
did see the
original?
remake. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I did see that one as well.
so we're doing everything. And funny thing is, I am doing all of my watch throughs and reactions on TikTok. So if you follow us on TikTok, I'm going to be doing every movie, my thoughts, whether I've seen it before or haven't seen it before, and then I'll be reposting those on YouTube, so you can see those shorts. It's like 2 minutes of me talking about the experience of watching these movies again or for the first time. So we're doing a full Nightmare on Elm Street series on TikTok, as well as you can find them on YouTube. So definitely check that out. We've already watched we've watched the first one last night. I think Freddy's Revenge is next, number 2. Uh,
Mm.
but I'm actually most excited for the third one, for Dream
Mm-hmm.
Warrior.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Y'all are in for a treat, and I'm so excited that you guys are starting that process. Wait, Brian, you got something behind you too.
Oh yeah, I got my little Freddy Krueger Funko Pop because I'm just in the zone there. I'm Funko Freddy ready. I'm ready Freddy. That's what I'm ready Freddy.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
You said your Funko Pop?
Oh,
It's our fun. It's her Funko Pop. I got it for her.
Oh,
Yeah,
got
yeah.
I love
Yes.
that. I wish I would have brought mine, but I'll have it with me next time. Because I've been in Hamilton and I love horror stuff. I had a friend as a going away gift when I left Hamilton, bought me all of the Skylar sister Funko dolls, but put horror movie heads on them. And
No,
it's the
really?
best thing ever. And
That's
so
cool.
on Angelica is Freddy Krueger's head, and it's fantastic. Freddy Krueger
Amazing.
in Angelica's dress.
Next time you'll have to show those for
Yeah,
sure.
I'll show them off. I'll have them
Awesome.
as my background next time.
But what have you been watching, Nikisha?
Oh, guys, two things. One, I think you need to watch immediately when we stop filming because it's only 30 minutes, and it's The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, Ari Aster's short film. It is on YouTube. I have seen people on TikTok talk about it for the longest time, and finally, I had the time to watch it. I didn't realize it was only going to be 30 minutes, but it is absolutely insane, and I'm going to leave it at that.
What's it
wait,
called?
I know what it's about.
Okay, yes, The Strange Thing About the Johnsons. And
I do
it's
not know what the strange thing is, so I'm looking forward to this.
great. I believe it came out in 2011, and yeah, it's one of his short films, and
Okay.
it is very intense in the subject matter. So watch that. And then last night I finally watched The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is something that we have
Mm.
discussed
Yeah.
on this podcast, but I finally sat down and watched it, and it was excellent. I think that we should definitely add that to our list of things to
Okay.
talk about, especially for the mental health aspect of it. So good things. But I'm
Ooh.
excited about this movie that we are going to talk about. And before we get into it, I think that we have to do a plot summary. I also think
Oh.
that it's probably my turn because I feel like I haven't done it in a
Oh,
while.
it's definitely your turn.
What's the plot?
You have
No.
outed yourself, and now it all falls on you.
All right.
Okay.
I'm setting you up here. 2 minutes on the clock. Nikisha, tell us what X is about.
Okay, so we open up. It's 1970, and there is background of bodies on the ground, and the police are looking around like, what happened here, to the background of this pastor who is talking about purity culture and how everybody who's sex positive are sinners and blah 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 blah. And so then we cut to 24 hours before that happens, and we are in basically a burlesque house, stripper house, whatever. These people are gathering together to make a porno. They drive over to another place in Texas, and they are filming on a farm because it's called something in the Farm Girl. I can't remember exactly the name of the movie that they're making. And so they come in. It's already a little spooky because the man is like, why are you on my property? It's private property. And he said, no, I called you. The director says, I called you, and we're making we're staying here. He doesn't tell him he's making a movie. So anyway, they get to the farmhouse and they're making the movie, and the wife of the
One
old
minute.
man, oh
One
my God,
minute.
the wife of the old man is kind of wandering around, and she sees it and she's like, what's going on? So throughout a series of events, the wife kind of in the middle of the night, so many things. She just starts killing people, and we don't realize why. We probably think it's probably because of like purity culture, and she saw what was they were doing, and so one by one, she's kind of picking them off. And then we realize that her and her husband are in on it because she wasn't getting sexually satisfied, I guess, by her husband. And she was finding other people to have sex with. And she finds this one girl that she latches onto, but the girl is like, no, please get away from me. And she ends up, the old lady ends up killing everyone except for this one girl that she did like. But then the one girl ends up killing her and runs over her head with a truck and manages to escape. And I think that that's basically the whole movie.
Well, that's your time. I think you
Yes.
nailed it.
And that's the plot.
Woo.
So many nuances. It's like so many things have happened, but it's pretty straightforward as well as just a slasher movie. So have you guys? Well, this is just came out. So did you guys watch this in theaters or did you watch it at home?
We watched it at home.
We
Okay.
rented it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
rented it and watched it at
Yeah.
home.
Same. So I didn't have the movie theater experience. I was in my house watching this. So since this is a new movie, let's get into our section of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So Jamie, do you want to tell us your likes and gripes of this movie?
Sure. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed like the the like 70s slasher vibes. It felt kind of like a throwback to like the B movie horror genre and like exploitation films. Um and I think it was just like like really well done. And I mean I think that's like par for the course for Ty West and like some of the other things that are kind of similar, like House of the Devil. Like it's like kind of capturing this time period, and I think that he does a really good job. Um, I like there's still things that kind of confuse me about the movie. And I feel like I'm still like trying to make sense of it. I liked that Mia Goth plays both characters, and like
Yes.
apparently she underwent like hours of the prosthetics and all of that. It's just like very interesting that she ends up like also being Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like because there are these like weird like intimate moments, but it's like, but if they look similar, like it's like making my brain hurt. It's
Yes.
like it's so like it's hard to make sense of, but I liked that. I liked that it wasn't like super straightforward. I love that both Brittany Snow and Kid Cudi are in this movie. Like where
So
have they
random.
been? Fun fact, Kid Cudi came to my college campus as like one of those like fall spring concerts my
Oh.
senior year, and I went and it was amazing. I was like obsessed with him for like a semester.
Love that.
But they were both really good in this. Even like the guy who's like the porn director was
Mm-hmm.
really good. And yeah, I mean the only like real nameable gripe that I have is like the part where Pearl is like stabbing that guy, and I'm like, what strength did she suddenly have for like a little old
Mm,
frail lady? Where she's just like bam, bam, bam. But meanwhile, before that, she was just like very slow, and it's like the idea of like you're not supposed to be scared of like the little old ladies, but actually like they're fucking terrifying. Um
absolutely.
and yeah, so like then that part is just like holy crap, like everyone needs to get the hell out of here. So that's my only
Absolutely.
gripe. How is she that strong?
Yes. I mean,
Fair.
those prosthetics were amazing because I watched the movie and then watched the Pearl trailer, and it wasn't until I was getting ready for this podcast that I saw Mia Goth played both Maxine and Pearl, and it's just
Oh, s-
whoa.
so you did not pick up on that during your watch of the movie.
No, I didn't.
Interesting.
Completely left field until I watched Pearl and I said, "Oh, that's the same girl. That's so smart that they would because
Mm-hmm.
the old lady is always saying how much she reminded her of herself, and so
Mm-hmm.
duh, it makes sense to have the same actress play the prequel version of this person." But I didn't
Sure.
realize in actuality it's the same person.
That's interesting because if you don't mind me going next,
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel very similar to Jamie in terms of the 70s vibes and while commenting on the 70s movies, but also kind of being a 70s movie was I was
Mm,
super dug that. Um, one of my true likes about this movie is that it doesn't try and hide Pearl and her husband from you because Pearl is in prosthetics. However, it always shows them from further back. So it's not this
mhm,
clear, crisp shot of the makeup and Mia Goth in the makeup. So and then as the movie goes on, sure they're in darkness a lot, but as the movie goes on, they start to show her a little bit more in focus, a little bit more center of the camera frame. And so they're kind of like slowly massaging you to believe that this is her, and it clearly worked because I don't think I realized it until like 3/4 of the way into the movie because that's when
mm,
you start like seeing them a little bit more, like that dinner scene with the two of them. Like that's
yeah.
when I started to pick up on that. Or when she invites her in, rather, like at the table.
Yes.
Uh, but I just thought that was so brilliant to massage it because if you remember when we were watching through Midnight Mass, spoiler alert for Midnight Mass, one of the things that we said to each other were clearly we knew that something was going to happen with age range in that because it was very clear that Alex Esso was in like very heavy prosthetic makeup, and like
Mm,
Henry Thomas clearly was made to look older, and things like that because they showed you up front. It was jarring, but I love how it gradually got you there in this one. I thought it was just like so well done. That's my biggest like of this movie, just in terms of what I was impressed with. Overall, I really liked this movie. I think that the kills were awesome in this movie. I like the thematic element of this movie. None of the pornographic stuff felt gratuitous in the way that it wasn't just like some slasher on the farm. Like it was all integrated into this thematic elements of purity culture versus not, repressed sexual energy and desires, the not being satisfied, casual sex versus meaningful sex. Like all of that was integrated into the plot and theme. So I thought that them being also it helped with the 70s aesthetic, them being porn stars, or wanting to make an actual like uh auteur film versus just smut was also interesting. I loved all of that stuff, and quite frankly, going into this movie, I didn't know anything about it. I did not know that Pearl was the slasher in this movie. I didn't know that the old people kind of existed outside of like a 70s Airbnb, if that makes sense. But Yeah, I really dug it. I don't really have any gripes with this movie. I think it would be strength. I would agree with that. I think some of the like not logistics, but some of the back and forth stuff, like how did someone get here so fast and stuff like that, was excellent.
mm.
And the special effects in this were spectacular, from the makeup to shotgun effects and stuff like that. So that's I'll stop there. I really loved this.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of one of your likes, Brian, because that was one thing that I really liked about this movie was the the 70s aspect of it, but in regards to the sex, and it wasn't just like other 70s movies where the sex does seem like it's just there for God knows what. But this one, because it was part of the plot and part of the theme, it still gives a nod to the 70s, but it also is intertwined in what the meaning of the movie is too. And I love that about this movie. I did not think I would like this movie as much as I did, but I am realizing through this podcast that I am just a true blood slasher movie girl. And so if you give me a straightforward slasher that makes sense, I'm going to love it. And this is exactly what that was for me. Um, I loved the cinematography of everything and how
Gorgeous.
the shots were created and made, and um flashing from one scene to the next and then kind of melding them together in some instances. It was lovely to watch. I also watched this in broad daylight, and so it was really hard to the dark scenes were really dark, so I guess that also contributed to why I didn't realize that Pearl was played by the same they were played by the same character.
Sure.
But yeah, I also love that there's going to be a prequel. And in my mind, when I was watching the Pearl trailer, I was thinking, oh, I hope that they have this movie, but then have another one where she's like married to the guy and what's that life like right up until the moment that
Yeah.
happens. And I think that there is going to be a second one after Pearl.
Yeah, they're making a sequel. I think to Pearl, not to this. I'm not sure, but Pearl comes out in
Right.
September. They filmed this and Pearl back to back. Secretly, they
Yeah.
filmed Pearl. I have. Oh, another like of mine is I feel like movies force you to empathize or feel sorrow for the slasher a lot of times, and I just don't buy it. I she was killing them. They didn't deserve to be killed. Like I didn't even think that in this one they were doing anything awful. I feel like there are a lot of times like the teenagers are like, yeah, I want a knife in his throat. But like in this one,
Right.
like I didn't always feel like they deserved the deaths they got. So like that makes you feel uneasy. But on the flip side, like you feel bad for Pearl. Like you don't it doesn't excuse her actions, but you're just like, what happened to you? Like you're literally asking yourself, like, what has scarred you and traumatized you and happened to you so bad? Your husband seems like he loves you. He just can't provide what you need. You can just like sense the unsatisfiedness throughout her veins. And quite frankly, before I knew there was a Pearl movie coming, I was like, I would love to know more about her. I just think they set it
Hmm.
up so well. I also This is my first Ty West movie. I have not
Same.
seen any of his other. The only Ty West movie or thing that I have seen is his segment of the first VHS movie, which is Second Honeymoon. If you know the VHS first original VHS movie, he does this segment where this man and woman, young couple, are on their honeymoon and they're like road tripping or something like that, and someone is like spying on them and filming them, and they think that someone's following them but they're not 100% sure.
Mm.
That one, and then there's obviously a twist at the end of that segment, but that's all I really know him from, outside of he's in Your Next as an actor and a couple of other movies as actor. um
Oh.
but yeah, I this makes me want to go back and watch all of his movies. And maybe we'll do that for Pearl. Maybe we'll just do that on TikTok. But I
Yeah.
definitely would love to watch those for sure.
Yeah, especially since he like edited everything too. I would love to see what his other movies are like. Uh there was one other thing I think I was going to say about likes, but in general, I really enjoyed this movie. I would absolutely recommend it to other people. Oh, I also love the aspect of just an older person being the villain in a slasher, because I had seen some TikToks kind of about Pearl or X in general, and it made me think that Jenna Ortega was maybe the surprise killer in all of it, and especially when I was started to watch it and she's
Mm.
so quiet and reserved and a little bit prude, I thought that maybe that would be the twist and that I ruined it for myself, but I didn't. So I was really excited that it was actually the older people. I didn't really have much of a gripe with her getting around or her strength. I think it's just a testament to the the slasher narrative or trope in general, that
Mm.
they have abnormal strength or they get to places faster than you think they would, even though this is an old woman and a mortal, old woman. We're not talking
Mm-hmm.
Myers or Jason or whatever, but it didn't bother me. I thought that the gore was excellent
A
in
plus
the
score.
movie. And
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I get freaked out at, and I think we all talked about this on the podcast, any kind of skin thing. I don't know. So when he stepped on the nail and just
Mm.
ripping that, ooh,
Yeah,
it gets
we
to me.
talked about that in maybe The Fly and Starry Eyes. I think we talked about
Yeah,
it too.
stuff like that.
Um,
And if you watch Deborah Logan too, there's a lot of that kind
oh,
of
is there?
gore, and
Okay.
it's terrifying.
Um, Something else I'll add is if you've been the listener of this podcast or follow us on TikTok, you know that I am a sucker. Or what do the kids say now? I'm a simp. Uh,
Oh, yes.
I'm a simp for animal attack movies.
Oh my god.
That's so perfect.
Uh, there's nothing better to me than an animal attack movie. Like, I'm very excited for Beast, starring
Mhm.
Idris Elba. Jaws is my favorite horror movie. Jamie will attest. Like, I was like, when Crawl came out on Hulu, I was like, let's go.
Yes.
So like, this movie is a slasher, but also has an animal attack in it. Like, that alligator, sign me up. Like, check, A plus, all in. Oh yeah, yeah, baby.
That was pretty intense, and wow, what a way to go, Brittany Snow. But good times were had.
She got a good death. You know what?
She did.
They all got really good deaths. Nobody was cheated out of a good death here. Like,
Yes.
even the little glory hole poke and the
L'Oreal.
glory hole poke, and man, sorry, what's your favorite kill in this movie?
Actually, now that you brought up the crocodile, when that happened, I gasped and I thought that was pretty. That and Jenna Ortega when she reached her hand to unlock the door
Oh,
and then they crush her hand. Yes.
Jamie,
I think
the
the
pokey,
why can't I what?
the pokey, the glory hole pokey.
I was like, why can't I think of the word pitchfork?
Oh,
Yes.
Glory hole pokey. Sounds like a dance.
yeah,
L'Oreal Pokey.
yeah, the
Well
glory
done.
hole pokey.
Mhm.
I actually, even though I just said I'm a simp for animal attack movies, my favorite kill in this by far is the surprise shotgun when Jenna Ortega's running out of the house. That really took
Mhm.
me by surprise. You know, she was locked in the basement. Her arm was broken. Her hand was broken, or whatever. She's like, "You're the worst. I hate you, Mia Goth." She runs out, and then like you think that she's gonna run into the night, and then she just like that like force of the shotgun like was just like really got me. That's the one for me.
That was super intense. But like you said,
Hmm.
Brian, all of them are so good. But I will now forever call that the glory hole pokey. Gonna be on the top of my list.
Oh
And
boy.
with that, let's get into some brains. Chomp, 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 chomp.
Brains.
So, even though this is a pretty straightforward slasher movie, it does dive a lot into the theme of purity culture and women's sexuality, on top of women owning their sexuality, and women like Jenna Ortega at the beginning who were more kind of prude, and like Brian was discussing, we're talking about sex for love or sex just cuz. And so I would just like to talk about that theme of purity culture and directed to you, Jamie, but also just an open ended discussion on the matter. I would love if you had any thoughts about dealing with people who might have gone through the trauma of purity culture, or if that's kind of affected them in any way. But I will say that that theme is something that has stuck with me for a long time as someone who grew up in the South in church, and the idea that women's bodies are not their own, that we are the cause of temptation. So there's already shame that's there. Also, just got done reading this book by Emily Nagoski, which Jamie and I have all talked about, which talks about women and shame and sexuality. And it talks about the moral message, which is technically what this movie kind of is. It's the moral message, and how that can be traumatic for people because you grow up with all of this shame and this guilt and feeling like you are the cause of things. And so you change who you are or the way that you dress because you don't want to be a quote unquote, temptation for other people. But I love how in this movie, like Brian said, they're not doing anything wrong. You don't want these people to die. They're just doing their jobs. They're consenting to all of this, which is a beautiful thing. And it's the other people who are kind of the villains in a sense. And so, Jamie, I just want to talk to you openly just about, have you dealt with other people who have gone through this? What are some ways that people can kind of deal with that kind of trauma, because that thing can trickle, it can affect all of your relationships. It can trickle down to how you treat yourself, maybe how you feel about your body and body dysmorphia because of sexual things in the media. So yeah, could you just talk a little bit to us about those kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, like, to be honest, it hasn't really come up a lot, and I don't know if there's, like, any particular reason. I mean, I know that, like, um, religious trauma isn't necessarily one of my areas of expertise, but I
Mm,
think, like, trauma is such a big umbrella bucket that,
yes.
like, a lot of people come in with a lot of different things, so it's not like I haven't had it never come up.
Right.
I think I think kind of in what you were, like, starting to say is just like, where do these ideas maybe, like, stem from, these more, like, y- uh, I would say, like, on the extreme end of beliefs, and like, what does that then do for somebody's, like, self-worth and their own values and ethics, and like, how do those experiences, like, inform how they think about themselves, how they think about others, and like, how often is that playing into relationships, and like, are there things that they haven't necessarily, like, come to terms with because they're still unpacking, what the impact is, and it's already such a, like, taboo subject to then,
Right.
even I think there's even, like, the trauma of having to, like, deal with it because it's something that hasn't really been talked about openly. It's just like, this is the way that it is. Like, this is
Yeah.
what you're expected to do because this is what, God wants you to do. And
Yeah.
like, starting to question that and, like, experience doubt, like, if you're having doubts, how do you internalize that? Do you feel like there's something
Mm,
wrong with you because
hmm.
you're not, like, just agreeing with this or, like, living this way? And like, how, again, like, how do these things get internalized, whether it's, like, made explicit because it's like, well, here in the Bible, like, this is what we're reading, and so, like, this is what we're believing, or messages that, like, we just internalize over time. And so, like, whenever other things come up that maybe aren't necessarily that explicit, how are we then, like, kind of policing ourselves and kind of, like, just struggling with the things that we have taken on and are holding as truths, and like, that's creating tension for our own identities. So, like, that's more of, I would say, like, the area that I've talked to folks about. But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm definitely curious about, like, your your opinions and experiences.
Well, before we get to Nikisha's opinions, I just want to say that I just got a notification on my watch that Jamie closed all of her rings while talking just then.
Wait,
Um,
really?
I guess
Oh, wow.
all of her gesticulation.
Good
Congratulations, Jamie,
job.
on closing all your
Wow.
rings today.
That's
Um,
that's great.
um,
Congratulations. I love
but
Thank
that.
also,
you.
based on what you're saying, I'm also thinking about this in terms of couples in this movie. So
Mm,
you have the four major couples are like Wayne and Max. Um, also, even though I said no one deserved to die in this, Wayne was gross. Like, but he was also in it for the money, but he was also a little gross. So that's fine.
yeah.
But you have Wayne and Max who seemingly are in a relationship with where they can delineate between when they have sex and when the sex is on for money on screen. Then you have RJ and Lorraine. RJ wants to make like a classy movie. He brings Lorraine along, and Lorraine wants to get into the action and try it, and you can take that for what it is in terms of like breaking out of that purity culture, wanting to feel free, that gender, whatever the case may be, and he can't take that and like leaves. So there's that aspect of things. Then there's Brittany Snow and Kid Cudi, Bobby Lynn and Jackson Hole, who are just like, balls to the wind or whatever
Right.
you want
Free
to
for
call it.
all. Yes.
Yeah, free for all. And then you have Pearl and Howard, who just like can't because of his heart, because of all of that stuff. And it's fascinating to see all these different levels of how they're able to kind of like um deconstruct their own sexual relationships, whether subconscious or consciously. I think that it's all fascinating, and it's especially hits hard when it's revealed that the preacher on the TV is Maxine's father. And
Mhm.
that she kind of comes from that world. I just think that like it's all both blatant and subtle at the same time. Like the reveals are blatant, but like the way that it's kind of like massaged in is pretty subtle. Especially in a movie dealing with that. So I just think that's fascinating based on what Jamie's saying in Brains versus like who the relationships are in this.
Yeah, I agree because it's interesting with Jenna's character and the fact that she was a little bit prude at the beginning and judgmental, but after she experiences the thing, she says, "Oh, this is something that I want to try to do now." And I also find that so fascinating, just in general, when we talk about judgment and judging people. And Jamie, if you have any thoughts on this, please feel free. But I'm always so curious about that pipeline from judgment, not necessarily because you believe that it's wrong, but because there's that underlining thing of it's something that you want to do but can't do
Mm,
type situation. And it's interesting to me to think of that's the first thing that people kind of go to is just judging other people that are doing the things that they don't want that they want to do, instead of trying to figure out a way to be okay with doing it themselves, and whether it is the ideas, especially in religious culture, of eternal damnation and sinning and consequences for your actions. And so that kind of leads you down the path of suppressing a lot of things, which is kind of been my experience, with the church. Is just there is a consequence, and so you do the good things so the bad things don't happen to you. And I think it's also funny in this movie because Jenna at the end is screaming and saying, "Oh my God, you caused this to happen, and I did all this stuff, and now," and then she ends up dying because of it. But that's also not the message of the movie either,
mm,
because the one who wanted to be the porn star and who left the church is the only one that survives the whole
sure.
thing, which
I
I think is
wonder.
also great.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that it's obviously highlighted by that reveal. And
Mm,
then I'm also wondering now that we're talking about it, and I don't think it's explicitly like made to be this way in the movie, but someone like Jenna Ortega's character, the Lorraine character, she's blaming other people for the situation they're in. I'm wondering if a part of her blames herself for it because she like crossed the line and like this is the
exactly.
consequence you get for this. So now
Yes.
she's yelling at Mia Goth's character, Max. Like being defensive about it. I'm just thinking about this
Mhm.
now. I don't know if that's what that scene was supposed to be, but I do think that it's fascinating, especially based on how you're talking about this, Nikisha. And I really want to hear more about your opinions on this. Um, so yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I mean that was my first thought when I saw that scene, was that she is blaming Mia, but she knows that because she strayed away, quote unquote, from her beliefs, that now she's getting the punishment that's coming to her, which is
Sure.
all of this. Like that immediately, that's where my brain went, because that's that's purity culture in essence. It's that toxic way of um not only blaming people but feeling that because you did this thing, this sin, that now nothing good can happen to you. You don't deserve anything good because of the thing that you did. And I think that's where the toxicity comes, because at least in religious culture, we talk about forgiving sins, and it doesn't matter what you've done, your sins can always be forgiven. But that's never the forefront of the conversation. It's always, you did the thing and this is the consequence because you did the thing, which is reflective of what the preacher is always preaching every time the TV is turned on in this movie. It's eternal damnation. You have to turn away from your sins. And I think he even says something about, God does forgive, but you can only forgive so much, or something in that nature is what he says as an excuse
Yeah.
of like, okay, you're continuing to do this, and so now this is going to be, the results of your actions. And so not to get too into it, but if you're interested, people out there listening, in just breaking down any kind of purity culture things, especially women and sexuality, and kind of taking back your sexuality, a book that has helped me is Come As You Are, and it's by Emily Nagoski, and it breaks down just different levels, and not just the moral message, which is one of the three things that she talks about, but there's like a media message, and there's like another M, but it's like three M's of things that can kind of lead you down feeling like you have to suppress your sexuality as a woman. But with this movie, I just really appreciate, like Brian, you were saying, the different dynamics of the characters and the women, and it not being so you're doing the wrong thing, and these characters aren't, trespassing on these people's property. They are paying to stay there, they're just doing their own thing in a lot that's really far away from the house. They're not disrupting the owners or whatever the case may be, and they're just, living their own life. And so, like, let people just do their own thing, and you do your own thing. So anyway, that is my whole take on the purity culture aspect of it. But I do have something, Jamie, that I want to ask you, and it's about Pearl in general. And
Ooh.
can we just discuss, like, what we think, and I know we'll get more of this in the Pearl movie, but what we think is going on with Pearl, because we get a little bit of glimpse of she didn't get the life that she wanted. But how do you think that ties into the extreme nature of now her just flat out killing people because she's not getting what she wants? How do you think that kind of comes together?
Great question, because I think a lot about things that I want that I don't have. So
Right.
my stabby hand is getting
It's ready.
ready.
It's ready. And you're still so young, so you have all the strength.
um, yeah, I mean, again, I'm also very interested to see what happens with the prequel Pearl, to see like what is revealed. But I mean, I wonder if it's more than just like, you know, what she doesn't have, but like also this like overwhelming frustration because like they're flaunting it, like that it's like in her face, and like the it's like just so like palpably on the surface that seeing them like live the life that she wants, or like live out her fantasies, like is just so infuriating that she like becomes violent.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't quite like, there's references of that maybe this isn't the first time that this has happened. So like how has this manifested in the past? Was it the same kind of deal? I mean, it's not like they knew that it's not like Pearl and her husband knew that these people who were renting out their farm space
Right.
were going to film pornography or do any of this stuff. But it's like, what kind of temper does Pearl have? And again, not that this is like, real in terms of like people who struggle with like managing strong emotions or anger are going to like murder everyone.
Yes.
But like that's the best that I can come up with.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we'll get more when we actually watch the movie Pearl.
And we should
kind of-
definitely cover Pearl.
Yes, yeah. So we can do our favorite, diagnose the DSM-5 of
I mean, I'll still give you a diagnosis. I
please.
think she's more
Yes.
Diagnoser.
I think that she's more of a stew because I don't think any of
Okay.
this is really premeditated. I feel like it's more impulsive.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Like
Oh.
I don't get the sense that like they again, even if they've done this before, I don't get the sense that like from the get-go that their intention was to just like murder everyone. Plus like it last time it
Yeah.
sounded like it was one person. This time it was like way more people. Like it's crazy to think again, maybe well, what I was about to say maybe sounded was going to sound super ageist, but like it is interesting to think about how, these two older people were able to murder most of these young people. And I mean, I think part of that is like the strategy involved with which then makes me want to like go back and question my own diagnosis that I offered. But like, I
Yeah.
still feel like it wasn't necessarily planned. Maybe they're just really good at, or maybe these people just happen to be stupider,
Mm.
which might be more of my opinion. And I guess we'll get to it when we get to skulls. But maybe they were just not as strategic in terms of saving their own skins and like had to do the one stupid trope that people be doing to get killed is
Yes.
separating and going off on their own. Like why are we still doing that? Hello. I'm like I'm still going to watch these movies, but like I feel like at this point it's pretty clear that that is always the wrong move. So why are people still investigating things by themselves? Like I want something new. I want something fresh where it's not just like,
Fresh?
oh, spooky. Yeah, I mean, fresh was fresh,
Yes.
like that was a good one. And again, like feels like I want more contemporary tropes that aren't just like oh, scary sound down there. I'm gonna go check it out. But
Of
this
course.
whole entire group of people who will, who have weapons and are safe and strong, you all stay here. Me, vulnerable, independent person, is gonna go check it out on my own. Like, why are we still here, people? Like, come
Yes.
on. I just I'm getting tired.
It was the 70s. They didn't watch as many horror movies.
Sure,
Right. And I
fair.
and I think
Okay.
it's also what you said about the ageism as well, because they feel like it's not a threat.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
I mean, that's a really good point. Yeah. Are they like just underestimating them because they're older? So it's like, oh yeah, there's nothing to worry about here. Maybe they're just weird, but we're gonna chalk that up to them being older and like it
Right.
and not trusting their own instincts of like this whole situation is very weird.
And also the generation gap between people, but this is the 70s, so what were they born in like the early 1900s? Um I
Oh,
feel like
jeez.
I feel like the generation gap between like people born around the turn of the century and like the 60s and 70s is like maybe even more ginormous than like boomers and millennials, or you know what I mean, like Gen X
For sure.
and Alpha. Like I just think that there's like that's definitely a thing. Also, something that I just want to point out, that her name is Pearl. It obviously conjures a very specific image in your head, something that is pure, something that is smooth, something that is of value. And that's kind of the opposite of what they present when it comes to the character of Pearl. So obviously that was done on purpose to really have a juxtaposition, or convey how she feels about herself inside, and when she looks in the mirror and like thinks through her feelings, it's not the same things that like match what her name represents. um
Yeah.
so that's definitely something that like hit me while watching that movie. Every time you thought that the character named Pearl and all of that, especially when you compare and contrast her to this young Mia Goth, um, to Mia Goth playing this older person, like it's the same eyes, but it's a different everything else, and I think that's pretty
Yeah.
powerful as well.
Yeah, and for those of you who are newer listeners, so Jamie said she considers this a stew. I just want to point that out, that we're referencing psychopath versus sociopath, and we do that through Scream, the movie Scream.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so
Thank you.
Billy is the psychopath and Stu is the sociopath. And so we're saying that Pearl is in the sociopath. This
Yeah.
was not premeditated, but impulsive.
Right.
And that makes sense because, like you said, Jamie, it's not like they knew what the kids were doing when they got into the house. She didn't
Right.
find that out until later, and then that kind of triggered everything else from
And we're
whatever
not
her
talking about
past
thick
was.
soups.
What?
Stews.
Oh.
Can someone disconnect this Zoom?
No, I'm the producer.
Uh,
Big old batch
I
of
will
stew.
say one random thought. Maybe this goes back to likes and gripes, but I do appreciate that Pearl's husband is a real ride or
He
die.
is.
Yeah.
Like, man, he's like, I might not be able to do the deed, but boy, I'll help murder all these dumb youngins with you.
Right.
The deep
That's love, baby.
That's love. And the saddest part of this movie, and the most ironic, obviously, is that he finally does it and dies from a heart attack from just getting scared.
Right.
That was literally heartbreaking.
Oh, so many years wasted. She could
Yeah.
have been on the, the true and narrow path of not killing people. But here we are, getting 2 movies later. Yes.
Well, but
Fantastic.
I'm interested to see if the Pearl's murder spree in the prequel comes from a lack of satisfaction, or was she always murdery and then the lack of satisfaction brought it out again? We'll see.
Murdery.
Yeah, murdery.
Yeah, I want to think murdery because she said something in the trailer about she feels like something's wrong with her. It's like something that she can't control. That's kind of coming out, and maybe there's just other things that, like you said, Brian, are triggering the thing.
It's
But
stew. She's triggered by stew.
it's a bad stew. It's fine. Jamie is not having it, and I love it.
I'm done.
Don't leave me.
Right. Sure. So should we go into some ratings, some Rotten Tomatoes of this movie?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yes.
Ooh,
Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think this Rotten Tomatoes score is? Nikisha,
Rotten
let's start
Stew-matoes.
with you. Your Rotten Tomatoes. Nikisha, what do you think? What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes are for this? What is your guess?
I want to give this something in the 90s, but I feel like it's probably 86. I'm going to say 86.
Jamie?
I was thinking 78.
Yeah.
This has a 95% on Rotten
Wow.
Tomatoes.
I'm so sorry. I hope that wasn't offensive.
The audience score is 75%. But the critics' consensus says a fresh spin on the classic slasher formula. X marks the spot where Ty West gets resoundingly back to his horror roots. That's the critics' consensus. The audience says X isn't every horror fan's idea of a good time, but it's often unique and never boring. Okay. I think I lean more towards the critics' consensus.
Same. I mean, this is a really good take on a slasher with reverence to the 70s that is X marks the spot. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Yeses.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horror's 4 S's.
Okay, the 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. Skulls we rank from 1 to 10 based on mental health and human behavior, how the movie handles that. Scares is how scary was it, and shakes is how much will it stay with you. And then suggestions will give a suggestion that you would buy in a Walmart 2-pack. Nikisha, let's run through the 3 of those, and we'll do suggestions at the end. What are your 3 ratings for this movie?
So for Skulls, I am going to give it a 4 and stick with that because I think the prequel will dive more into us discussing human behavior and mental health. Scares, I'm going to give this a 6. A 6.
A sex?
A sex. No, it's because I was looking at my sheet and my shakes is a 7, and so I like glanced and I got it wrong. So scares is a 6, shakes is a 7.
Okay, great. Jamie.
So my skulls is a 3 because I don't really think that everyone makes the best choices in this, and it bothers me. Scares is a 5. Some of those, it wasn't like too intensely jump scary, but again, like watching her do her like rapid stabby, like really caught me off guard, and some of the kills were pretty juicy. Shakes. I'm gonna give it a 5. Because I feel like this is also one of those movies I'm still like trying to process. Like, what do I think about like why Mia Goth is playing these two parts? Will more be revealed once we see Pearl? Like I feel like I want more of Pearl, and so like I'm not done with this character. I'm not done with this storyline. So it's sticking with me, and yeah, I definitely want more.
Yes.
Cool. Mine is a 5 on skulls. I think it's trying to say something about the sex and desire and all of that. But I also think on the other hand of it, it's still a slasher and they make poor decisions. Um, Scares, I'm giving it a 6. Some of those things always caught me by surprise. Like, not only was I surprised that she got eaten by the alligator, but like you saw the alligator like bite her head, like it came out of the water. Then you have the glory hole pokey, and then obviously the scare of like just like that kind of like jump scare that you're not expecting when she gets hit with the shotgun or shot with the shotgun. Like I think there's some, and also it's deeply unsettling in some places when she's under the bed listening to them,
Mm.
like that kind of stuff. And then
Oh,
shakes.
and the alligator, sorry. And the alligator that was gonna get to Mia's character but then didn't, that whole scene was very unsettling.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a good one too. So Shakes, I'm giving this a 7 because I feel like I'm super satisfied by it, but I'm not totally satisfied by it, which hopefully Pearl will do. But I really, if somebody asked me like, what's a good contemporary slasher movie, this would 100% be at the top of my list.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean this and like maybe Happy Death Day and like some of those ones, but
Oh, yeah.
this one's more serious. Like that's what I would lean towards this one. Cool. So let's do some suggestions. Nikisha, why don't you go first?
I'm gonna suggest the 1977 The Hills Have Eyes.
Okay.
To go with this. Yes. Keep it in
Uh,
the 70s family.
sure. I'm gonna do the easy one. Uh, 70s. This is very Texas Chainsaw Massacre in some ways.
Yes.
I think you just watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and if you've never seen it before, which is how I was on our episode of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, wow, I still think about how good that was and how different it was. Like even now, how different it was. Like that movie is so good in its own way. So I'm going with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Hmm.
Jamie.
I didn't go. So I went into random directions. Instead of doing like a classic 70s slasher, I went with something else that's more contemporary, but the aesthetic
Mm.
feels more like that. And I went with the existing 2-pack Grindhouse, which is
Oh,
Planet Terror and Death. Uh, oh
Death
my God,
Proof.
what is? Yes, thank you. I was gonna
Hmm.
say Death Race. That's a different thing. Which like I wasn't crazy about Death Proof, but like very much like that even more than Planet Terror feels like this very similar aesthetic.
Sure.
So that's one recommend. Although I love Planet Terror. That's a great film. The the other way that I went was I was thinking about another movie where older folks are the villains and you're not expecting them
I
to
know.
be the villains.
Oh god, oh god.
I went with good old M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. What a good time. Everyone should see that movie. It's
Okay.
great.
I know you don't like messes.
I heard you don't like messes.
Can't wait for our segment or on those movies.
Yeah, well, I wrote down some of the like the highlights of Shyamalan's career that we'll do. Like we'll skip some, we'll do others, but yeah, for sure, we'll definitely do The Visit.
Fantastical. Jamie, is that all for your suggestions?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up this episode of X and our first episode in season 4.
Yay! I would say that X marks the spot.
Slash XX. Well, just a hearty thank you to everyone who has been listening / rocking with us on our social medias and rating and reviewing us. We really appreciate all of that. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and now the YouTubes. Exciting times at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Yeah, absolutely. You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us on Stitcher. You can listen to us on Spotify, wherever you do that. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
And as Nikisha just said, we are on YouTube. Find us at Talking Horror Podcast. Subscribe to us there. You're going to get the video of this, so watch us talking about this for season 4 and beyond. Before season 4, you can get all of our episodes, so check us out on YouTube. The link is in the description.
I wish that there was a version of the glory hole pokey, like do the hokey pokey, but the glory hole pokey as our ending for this, because that would be fantastic. You know,
you put your left eye in, you take your left eye out. Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh.
That's what it's all about, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.